There we go. We are now officially recording. All right. So welcome to the January 2021 Virtual Quality Talk. It always feels like it's been a while in January because we don't typically do an event in December. So it's been 2 months since we gathered here as a KWSQA group, but excited to kick off a new year. Thank you once again to D2L for continuing to let us use their corporate Zoom account for these meetings. Just a quick recap of who your KWSQA board members are for this year. So we have myself, Tina Fletcher, I'm the president. We have Kyle Lewis returning as our treasurer. We have Ed DeGraff returning to the board, but in a new role as secretary. We have 3 more returning directors, Rob Boyer, Jared Small, and Graham Harvey. And we have 1 new director, Bailey Hanna, is joining the board this year. So welcome, Bailey. If you're looking to stay in touch and be up to date on all the latest happenings with KWSQA, Twitter is a good option. You can follow us. We're at KWSQA. We'll give you just a quick rundown of our plans for 2021. So we will continue with quality talks in this virtual format for the foreseeable future. So you can expect approximately 1 per month of these events, as we've been doing for a while now. We are also going to be restarting our testing games events. We have one planned soon. We don't have a finalized date just yet, but we're expecting within the next month or 2, hopefully. And we'll be working with Shiny Docs for that one. So stay tuned for more details there. A bit of a sad note about targeting quality. We just wanted to let you know that we are canceling targeting quality for 2021 again, mostly for the same reasons as last year. There are a lot of online virtual conferences that are being offered, and we feel that the sort of unique value that we were able to offer at targeting quality was really the in-person, local focus, locally focused networking. So we're hoping to restart targeting quality again next year, but we, again, this year don't feel that it's the right choice for the organization to host the conference. A couple of upcoming quality talks to let you know about. So in a month, we've got Josh Grant scheduled to come and talk to us about a library that he uses for testing Python code. And then in March, we've got Raj Subramaier booked, and he's going to be doing a less technical talk, but very inspirational about how to skyrocket your career. So we're looking forward to both of these upcoming talks. We do have some openings available in 2021 for these quality talk presentations. So if you have an idea of something you might like to present, then visit our website at kwsqa.org and you'll find a form there to fill out to submit your idea for a talk. We would love to hear from you, regardless of your level of experience with speaking or where you're located. So feel free to head over there and check that out. A quick note about memberships for the KWSQA in 2021. We plan to offer what we're calling sustaining memberships soon via our website, so stay tuned for the details there. These will cost $20, and these are just sort of a nominal fee to help our organization sustain itself through these different times that we find ourselves in. But our plan is to continue offering these virtual quality talks free and open to the public. So you don't need a membership to attend these meetings. But if you have a membership, besides the benefit of just supporting our organization, it means that you're eligible to vote or to run in our 2021 Board of Directors election. So keep that in mind. And as I said, we'll share more information soon about how to purchase one of these. A quick note that our KWSQA Code of Conduct applies to our virtual online events in the same way that our in-person events, that it does to our in-person events. So please let anyone on the board know at any time if you have any questions at all about the Code of Conduct. All right, so finally on to the interesting part of today's gathering. So we will have our presentation first, and then we will have some Q&A afterwards, and then you'll have a chance to give some quick feedback about what you thought of the session. We will reshare this link and how to participate in the Q&A after the presentation is finished. We'll put this slide back up most likely. So let's get to today's presentation. So today we have Mahesh joining us, and he is going to tell us a bit about his journey related to building his own test environments in his team. So that's it for my part of the presentation here, and I will turn it over to Mahesh to tell us more.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, can you see my presentation?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, thank you. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on where you are located. Today's presentation is all about test environments. How a tester could build his own test environments. And test environment is not just about the product or the application that we're going to build and deploy and have it up and running. It's also about how do you get a test infrastructure that is needed to conduct performance testing, automation testing, and other different types of testing. So ask this question in your mind and keep the answer to yourself. You're all testers, so can you build your own test environments today, right? So keep the answers to yourself. We're going to revisit the same question towards the end of this presentation, and we can see how confident are we to build, manage, and maintain our own test environments. I had a similar question a decade back when I was managing multiple testing team and testing center of excellence. Right, I'm sure each one of you had a similar experience. It could be good experience, bad experience, sometimes frustrating experience. Having to deal with environments, having to be dependent on external teams and external people to get the testing environment. A decade back, we were so much dependent on the external teams. We literally had to wait for hours together. We had to wait for days together sometimes to get test environments up and running. Sometimes to get log files, sometimes to have a configuration changes done on the test environment, right? So we were completely dependent on the external team. I still recall days where after we had to run, for example, performance testing. Even for a simple configuration change, we had to put in a snow ticket, and that snow ticket would take from many hours to sometimes a day to get attended. And also, pulling out an AWR report for analysis in the performance testing and engineering. Again, you had to put in snow ticket, right? So it was very, very, frustrating having to deal with, the dependency that we had on, environment team. And also building environments, before the cloud era was, not really very easy. Because people had to procure hardware, they had to work out on the capex. Once the blade servers are in the data center, they have to do the networking configuration. So there was so much dependency beyond what we are talking about. So overall, it was, pretty daunting, experience. I'm sure each one of you had, each one of you would have experienced, in dealing with test environments. Uh, So firstly, we will talk, the impact without, test environment. So what would happen, if we don't have test environments available, if we don't have the right test environment for carrying out testing activities? I'm trying to highlight only a couple of them, but I'm sure there are a lot more impacts that we would have seen and that we would have experienced without having test environment. Some of them are, product releases are going to suffer. Product and customer success is going to be impacted. Imagine that, you have, worked out on your, testing overall schedule. You worked out on testing planning, testing strategies, and everything. And, if you don't have the test environments available to you at the right time, everything is going to be impacted. You would not be able to carry out the testing activities as per plan, and there is going to be a lot of delay in conducting and providing feedback from the testing. Faster feedback loop is going to be impacted. The overall iteration becomes longer and longer. And also, not having the right test environment, testing can completely go wrong. A lot of times, one single test environment is just thrown at testers and teams to carry out all kind of testing, right? So there will be one environment where people have to conduct automation testing, functional testing, security testing, performance testing, which is not realistic to carry out, and which would not really work the way the other teams would think of, right? Uh, so that's where it's important to really have the test environments available at the right time. Testers would get demotivated. Testers' morale would go down. Like I said, you have made all the preparations. You have worked out your strategies. You worked out your planning. You are all set. And when you ask about the test environment, and if it's not available, and if you have to wait for hours and days to actually get the test environment to start conducting testing, you would be frustrated to the core, right? So that's where testers morale, testers would get demotivated without having the right test environments. uh, like I said in the earlier slide, one such example I could take is, performance testing and engineering activities, where, it's a continuous feedback process. You test, you tune, you retest, you tune. So you carry out that iteration until you fine tune the application. And it's very important that to have faster feedback. It's very important that you have, access to the environment, right environment available. Imagine that you conduct performance testing in an environment, and you have to make changes to the environment to see, to observe how the test results would look like after fine tuning. And if you have to wait for hours and days to make the changes happen and retest, that's a frustrating experience, and you will not be able to provide faster feedback to the developers and other groups, and things would not really go as planned, right? So and also sometimes it's scary that we are dependent on the external team for our success, right? You define that overall testing success beautifully, you articulate and plan it very well, but once you start thinking that there is this there is this test environment which we are dependent on the external team, which would define the overall success and deliveries of the testing. That's little scary, right? So that's where it's very important, to have the test environment. And also the cost of overall testing, would increase, if you don't have the right test environments. And of course, there are many other impacts not having the test environments. Why test environments are critical? A golden rule in testing is that the quality of your test is not any better than the quality of your test environment, right? Like I said, the external teams or the infrastructure team could just throw an environment and ask you to carry out testing on that environment, right? But if the environment is not robust, if the environment is slow, if the environment is not configured rightly for carrying out needed testing, that would not really help you out. So your automation would just execute based on the instruction, but there'll be a lot of failures, flakiness, and not so expected results that would come out of that, right? So overall testing success is definitely dependent on the testing infrastructure availability, making it available at the right time and having the right environment, for you to conduct testing. And of course, faster feedback loop with all DevOps, SaaS, and with the modern era of releasing products faster to the market. If you don't have test environments, your testing is going to get delayed. If testing is going to get delayed, the product overall quality and testing criteria would not be met. So that would mean you would not be able to release the products. So there is a continuous impact to the overall product and customer success that's been linked with test environment. And of course, faster release to the market would definitely get impacted. Uh, you know, uh, because a lot of times, you will have to conduct various testing activities, ranging from performance testing, automation testing, security testing, cross-browser testing, cross-platform testing. So there are wide variety of, testing requirements that today products need to undergo, and it's very important that test environments are equally critical. Uh, so what kind of test environments are we really talking about? So we are talking about, any kind of test environment to support your testing activities. It could be, performance testing environment, security testing environment, accessibility testing environment, to test your mobile products. It could be, production like environment. It could be container environment, any environment that your product would have requirements to be tested. You need to be thinking of building and managing those kind of environments, performance testing environments. So having control, access, having ability to build performance testing environment is very, very critical and vital for any performance testing and engineering team to succeed. If you don't have control and access to the environments, you're going to miss out on a lot of things. Performance testing and engineering involves activities where you need to set up agents. It could be monitoring agents, it could be profiling agents. It could be you will have to make configuration changes to the JVMs. You might have to make configuration changes to the database. Lot of engineering activities are involved. So it's absolutely does not make sense, if you are dependent on external teams where you have to log a snow ticket, to get those changes incorporated and get going with the performance testing activities. So performance testing and engineering team is going to fail without having control, access, and ability to manage, and maintain the performance testing environment. In our company today, the performance testing and engineering team, they build their own test environments, they manage their own performance testing environments, and they do it end to end. And we have made it a possibility. And of course, that's a long journey. It's not going to happen overnight, which I'm going to be talking in the upcoming slides. Automation testing environments, again, it's not just making an environment available for automation testing. You have to also think of how do we carry out automation testing in a much faster way. How do we accelerate? How do we provide parallel nodes to carry out automation testing activities, right? Today, a lot of automation scripts or Selenium scripts that you might be running in a sequential mode, right? So how do you get them to run in parallel with the power of cloud, right? So there are those things that a testing team also has to think about. Right. Uh, Next comes the end-to-end environment and the integration environment. So we have a lot of products, and connecting those products, building the end-to-end environment where product A talks to product B via a platform. So building those is actually a very daunting task, and without building those, you will not be able to carry out a very realistic end-to-end testing or integration testing activities, right? A lot of times we do mocking and service virtualization, which is equally important, but it's equally important to have that realistic end-to-end environment created to carry out end-to-end testing activities, and also integration testing activities, right? Device form. So a lot of requirements are there for carrying out mobile testing. It could be a native app, it could be an hybrid app or whatnot, right? So you will have to have your own device form where you can build a device form on prem, you can build the device form on the cloud, you can use some of the vendors and technology who provide commercial solutions and softwares, and also there are open source software and solution to provide a device form. A lot of times what I have seen is teams have their own mobile devices, iPads, tablets, to carry out testing on iOS, Android, and whatnot. But there is a lot of duplication and redundancy in managing those devices, and sometimes teams end up waiting for Android phone to be available, iOS phone to be available to actually carry out their testing activities. And also automation, running automation on those simulators and emulators is also very challenging, because a lot of things are not really organized. So that's where building, managing, organizing a device form is very important for the testing teams to succeed. Production like environments. A lot of times, we have requirements where, you just not build test environments, but you build, environment out of database that comes from the production environment. So you have a database that's been copied from production, and you will have to stand up a whole new environment out of the database, because that's extremely important to carry out a lot of testing activities like performance testing, integration testing, and replicating some of the defects and whatnot. So a requirement for production environment is fair enough, and testing teams should really have the capability to build it. Sometimes what we do is we record all the workload on the actual production environment, and we bring that workload and replay it back on the test environment. So when you have an actual production like environment, you could bring the recorded workload from production and replay it on a test environment to observe the behavior and do a lot of realistic testing. So having capabilities to build production like environment is also very important. Building containers and non-container environments, of course, we're all moving into Dockers, Kubernetes clusters, and everything. But before we certify, before we deploy them, it's important that we carry out those testing activities on the actual container versus non-container environments. So we should have the ability to build container and non-container environments, right? There could be a product which you want to deploy in a Docker container. So before you even deploy it in a Docker container, you would have to ascertain how does it behave on a non-container environment versus on a container environment. And you should have the ability to create those environments, right? And lastly, security testing environment. Security testing environment, again, extremely vital, critical to carry out, different type of scans, pen testing, looking for vulnerabilities and whatnot. So you need to have the right environment available to carry out, security testing activities as well. So the environment requirements I'm talking about here are just not restricted to these type of test. Like I said, it could be any environment to support any of your testing needs. So, and we should have that capability and ability to build that. So who should solve the problem? Can the company, come and solve the problem? Of course not. I mean, they have hired us to solve this problem. We're all smart people. They hire smart people to come and solve the problem. So company can definitely not, solve this problem. Can our beloved developers solve this problem? Well, they're, very busy with, development and unit testing and other related activities. So though they can extend support to a certain extent, it might be very difficult for them to solve the problem. Can CTO, CEO solve the problem? Again, they can only help to a certain extent, but they cannot really solve the problems that what a typical testing team would face in terms of environment challenges. Lastly, project manager, again, scrum master or project manager can, go to certain extent, get help from the external teams, uh, define certain things, how that could be leveraged or whatnot. But again, it's going to be difficult for project manager to solve this problem. So who else could solve this problem? Uh, uh, Nobody, and nobody better than a tester actually understands all the challenges, frustrations, requirements that one needs out of a testing environment. So who better than us to solve the test environment challenges and test environment requirements? So in my opinion, testers and testing teams should take the onus on them, and they have to collaborate with infra team, DevOps team, to work out on how to solve the challenge. And in my experience, I've seen where testing teams have succeeded. They have come up with more effective solution to deal with the environment challenges. So how to solve the environment challenge, right? Uh, Firstly, like I said, it's quite a journey. It does take some time to really, transition to a state where you can start managing and maintaining your own environment. Firstly, test architects, test leads have to lead by example. They have to start learning about the system. They have to start understanding, about the infrastructure. Uh, they have to understand, what components and how they are conducted. What is the how is the product made of, right? What forms an environment? How is an environment built? So test architect, test leads have to start, leading by examples, by learning, understanding, providing the similar kind of trainings to fellow testers and within the testing teams. Uh, Next step would be, you can actually build a small environment team to start with. You could hire a external person, who would be part of your team, who would start managing bits and pieces of the environment, like doing a configuration changes, without having to depend on external teams or log a snow ticket, and who's going to bump up the CPUs, bump up the memories, who is going to bring up an application server. So you can start really slow, and be part of your team, so that he's readily available, he's readily accessible for you to provide the basic needs of the testing environment. And also the idea behind having a small environment team is to motivate, is to train testers also to start understanding about the application architecture, understanding what forms an environment and whatnot. Testers should also start, testers should also believe that test environments is something that they should be responsible for, because that's very critical for them to succeed overall. Their overall testing is dependent on the test environments as well. So testers have to understand that they have equal owners with the test environment management and usage. A lot of times we have seen where people say, testers say that test environments are not available. We could not do much. But I've seen a different group of testers looking beyond that challenge. Why are we dependent on an external team? Is there something that we could do to manage some part of the test environment, so that we don't have to really complain about test environments always, right? The next thing is, provide testers training on application architecture. What I believe is, people should look beyond UI testing. People should look beyond black box testing. So today's testers should actually be glass box testers and not black box testers. So they have to know, how all the components are connected. They have to know how what application architecture is. They have to know how the product is built in terms of technology, because that is extremely important for them to succeed in their testing, and also that is extremely important for them to carry out effective testing, right? So if you don't really understand a lot of components, how they are connected and work under the hood, it becomes very easy, very difficult for you to really carry out some of the testing in a very effective manner, right? uh, so and also start training testers on application servers, database servers, AWS cloud, bits and pieces of Ansible, Terraform, right? They don't need to be experts. I mean, what I'm trying to say is we don't have to convert testers or testing team to an infrastructure team, but they should be in a position to change the code when they need to, so that they can deploy it automatically, have the environment up and running, and they should be able to communicate the environment requirements clearly to within themselves or the infrastructure, right? So that's the idea. I mean, again, the idea is not to convert them to an infrastructure team, but start building something so that it makes them very easy if they have to make any code changes to the environment and deploy it, or if there are things that they can start contributing in terms of the environment. That becomes very easy. And what I've seen in my experience is, some testers have really loved this approach, and today they are able to build and modify their own test environments. So how do we really solve? I mean, I know I spoke about a couple of things, but how do we really solve this challenge, right? With the power of cloud today, right? Building, managing, and maintaining environments is no longer a challenge. We can stand up a server in under a minute. We can have Tomcat WebLogic deployed on a server and bring it up in under a minute. So there are plethora of options that are available to deal with environments, to manage and maintain environments on the cloud. Again, the emphasis is not to ask the testers learn everything from scratch. Uh, Meaning, the testers don't have to really invest a lot of time, but testers need to understand, some of the technologies. They need to, get trained and learn some of these, so that you can start leveraging on what is readily available and what is already existing, right? uh, and the next thing is, containers. Have Docker containers or Vagrant containers, running on your local, right? With Docker containers, you could have the test environments deployed on testers' local machines and laptops, so that they can start, testing. You could deploy various versions on the Docker containers and start testing. Amazon machine image. So start managing and maintaining machine images, so that you could quickly spin up application server, database server, and any other components that is required by your product, right? Jenkins pipeline. So this is all about managing infrastructure as a code. So today, the infrastructure is immutable. We manage everything as code, right? So what we do is, we write the code to bring up the whole environment, and that is stored in the Git repository. And you would have build pipeline that you would configure with Jenkins, Bamboo, and other tools, to bring up your own environment, very quickly and in a consistent manner, right? So testers can actually contribute to write, some of those code to manage and maintain the whole environment and infrastructure, right? Again, the expectation is not to ask testers to write everything from scratch, but make use of what DevOps team have already developed, what infrastructure team have already developed in terms of the pipeline. Replicate those pipeline and build on top of that, right? So that then it becomes relatively easy. If testers do not have a background and do not understand a lot of this technology and technical details, then it becomes very difficult for them to do even a small change and deploy the application, right? So uh, that's the message I'm trying to provide here. And next is, device form. All the companies would have, requirements related to cross-browser testing, cross-platform testing, cross-mobile testing, and that's a big challenge today. Teams have been waiting because they don't have environment where they could run, their test using Mozilla, using Firefox. Sometimes there are queues, a queue in which the teams have to wait to carry out their testing, right? So that's where it's very important that you think what is needed to meet all these requirements. Cross-browser requirements, cross-platform requirements. If you have to run your test on iPads, Macs, Linux, Windows, right? So it's extremely important. So one way to do is you can actually set up your own device form, centralized device form, so that the entire company can make use of it, right? Should I've seen in some companies where they work in silos, they manage their own automation testing needs, which is not a very effective solution. I mean, that is very redundant, and sometimes you're not really using it from cost and from other benefits perspective, right? So that's where setting up a device form, which could be on-prem device form, cloud device form, or hybrid device form, is extremely important. Service virtualization, if your product uses APIs and microservices and those calls, having an environment which would help with the service virtualization is important, where you will going to have word servers up and running to conduct performance test and integration testing without having to really wait for the end product to be available. Uh, Serverless. Again, with automation testing needs, it's extremely important to leverage the capabilities of serverless, where there's no limit for the compute capacity. There's no limit for what you can actually run. Which I'm going to be talking in a bit. How automation can make use of the serverless. So these are some of the ways to really, resolve the environment challenges that we have as testers and testing teams. Quickly touching upon, Amazon machine images. So what we do here is, we create a golden AMI, we validate, we approve, we have a formal process that we do, and there are golden images that are actively kept. And then you also decommission those golden old AMIs when you don't need it. Right. So what we do in our company is, we have golden images that's being maintained, application server, database server. We have, other components, many other components that forms the entire environment. So all those are being, maintained as golden images. What we do is, out of those golden images, we quickly build our test environments. We deploy it on public subnet, we deploy it on private subnets. You would have your front end, back end, database, active directories, everything that can come up, very quickly. You don't really have to wait on any external teams. You could, build it uh, very quickly. You could build it in a very consistent manner. And like I said, a lot of these things are also managed and maintained as code. So using those codes integrated with pipeline and other ways, you could quickly bring up your test environment for your various needs. Uh, the next one is, getting test environments up and running on your local laptops and local machines. So what we do today is, we use Docker technology. So we have people building, Docker images. We have various developers, various various people across the company contributing to manage and maintain the code for the Docker images. We store Docker images in the JFrog Artifactory, which is again connected with S3, Amazon S3. So what we do is, we have Docker images of application server, database server, the service layers and backends, right? So if a tester want to if a tester want and test environments to be up and running, he's going to set up Docker on his laptop, and then he will start, pulling the Docker images that is relevant. If you want to test with version 1, you can have version 1 running on his laptop. If you want version 2 that's up and running, he can set that up in his laptop as well. So it's really extremely beneficial and useful. It's also relatively easy and quicker to do that. So the biggest advantage is, you have environment up and running on your local laptop without any much external dependency, which will be extremely beneficial for carrying out testing activities. The next thing is, we use, Terraform. So basically, Terraform is used to spin up environments. So Terraform is where you write code to bring up, to create environments. It could be creating a server, it could be creating a subnet, it could be creating a security group, assigning public IPs. A lot of those things are done using Terraform. And Ansible is a configuration management tool where you can configure, Tomcats configuration, WebLogic configuration, JDBC pool configuration, and whatnot. And Packer is used to, package and prepare the machine images that can be used to deploy anywhere. So what we do is, like I said, the entire infrastructure, the entire environment is maintained and managed as a code, and the code sits in the Git repository. So whoever has a need, to create a specific environments, they come, they add their piece of code, they modify the piece of code, they check into the Git. So once you check into the Git, the Jenkins would automatically create machine images out of that. It would create database images, app server images. It would create front end, back end, and all the components that is required to complete an environment. So once you have the images readily available, you can start creating any number of environments you would need. Right? You can create test environment 1, 2, 3, depending on what sort of requirements you have. So again, the whole idea is, to manage everything as a code so that you have an automatic way of spinning up environments depending on your needs. This is about the Selenium automation infrastructure. So a lot of you might have experienced where infrastructure is a big challenge. A lot of times, you don't have many automation nodes or Selenium nodes to actually run your Selenium suite, right? So you'll have to run it sequentially. Right, when you run it sequentially, what would happen? The overall time that it takes is getting longer and longer, and the more number of products you have, the more number of teams you have, that will only get bigger and bigger, right? So with today's cloud technology, with today's serverless technology, everything can be run in parallel, right? For example, if you have 10 automation scripts that you want to run, and if each of them takes 1 minute to complete, so if you are running them sequentially, it's going to take 10 minutes for it to be completed. Imagine if you can run all the 10 scripts in parallel, it's going to just take 1 minute to complete the whole automation suite, right? So this is a this has biggest advantage, greatest advantage, in terms of, getting faster feedback, completing in a very less time, right? So the idea again here is, it does not come very easily. You will have to provide these kind of environments. You will have to provide these kind of infrastructure for people to consume it. And who can do that? Testers can do that because they understand the requirements, very, very well. So there are, a lot of success stories where, something that was taking hours together now has been brought down to, minutes because of, changes they have brought in terms of infrastructure, right? So there's one such example where the whole UI test suite used to take 60 minutes, which has been brought down to 39 seconds. And again, word server, you need to have, infrastructure set up for people to start making use of the word server, especially for conducting integration testing and performance testing, where, people don't have to wait for a full blown application to be available and they can start hitting the word server to conduct their testing activities. The device form, I did touch upon this in my earlier slide as well. Again, the whole idea is, device form, it's very easier to set up a device form either on the cloud or either on-premise, or you could go for an hybrid model. But it's very important that you manage, maintain, and have control on your device form, because as testers and testing teams, it's very extremely important that we centralize this so that there's no redundancy, there's no duplication, and people across the company can start leveraging this. And this is about something that we are trying to build. So what we're trying to build today is we all talk about data science, AI, ML from development perspective, but very rarely we talk from testing perspective, right? So what we're trying to build here is we're trying to build a centralized data lake for all testing results to come and sit in, right? It could be test results of performance testing, test results of automation testing, test results of security testing, accessibility testing. So the whole test results would come and sit on one centralized database, data lake. So once you have this data lake created, you can start building your own AI ML models. You can start doing predictive analysis, and sky's the limit, to think what you can actually do. Again, what I'm trying, the point I'm trying to drive here is, these things can only be done effectively by the testers. And if testers have to do that, they have to take the onus of, building, some part of this, right? So to build some part of this, you need to understand, what it takes to complete an environment. You need to understand some of the technologies. You need to undergo some parts of the training, right? Because, like I said, testers really understand what are the benefits that we are going to be getting, from infrastructures and environments that we'll be building of these things. So there are there are a lot of other examples, where we need test infrastructure, where we need to, support it. Like I said, it could be CloudFront if you want to, test with different, servers like 4 gig RAM, 8 gig RAM, 12 gig RAM. Performance testing, of course, is a big space. Container, non-container environments. So overall, testing teams have to really think about how they can build and manage their own test environments, and also how they can provide infrastructure or environment needs for various type of testing. And ultimately you can get to a point where you can configure, you can bring it down to a Jenkins job. I mean, under the hood, behind the scenes, there'll be a lot of things that we'll have to do, but ultimately you can bring it to a simple Jenkins job where an end user or a tester would come and select, do I need performance test environment? He just selects that and he clicks on button, build it, and you boom, you have a test environment, right? Likewise, you select automation test environment, you click on the build, boom, you have a automation test environment. Likewise, all test environment needs can be brought down to a single Jenkins job, and you could create the environments. I had told that we're going to revisit this question again. Ask yourself, I'm a tester. Can I build my own test environment? In my opinion, I have gone through this journey, and I feel definitely comfortable as a tester. I can build my own test environments. Key takeaways, testers and test team can effectively plan and build test environments. We started supporting environment requirement for many of the team, after we became successful. In fact, developers and development teams started approaching us for some of their, environment needs. Right? That's how we set an example across the company. Testing teams should be equipped to create any kind of test environment to drive product and customer success. Testing team can manage all the testing infrastructure to have better control, visibility, and contribute towards the product success. Somewhere, testing team has to own and drive a test infrastructure given the plethora of needs that we have today for conducting and carrying out, testing types. So own it, drive it, and succeed in this battle. And lastly, beware of the environment cost. It can easily overrun. So once you start providing, options where people can come select their environment needs and build it, teams can start creating many environments. And if you don't have a better and proper way of monitoring, controlling it, you might overrun the cost. So keep a tab on that. Lastly, credits for presenting for all the PPTs and images, Amazon Web Services, and Illusion and team. About me, my name is Mahesh. I work for a company called Illusion, which is into higher education space. I'm a senior development manager at Illusion, and this is my LinkedIn profile. If you want to contact me, please feel free to reach out to me. With that, I'm towards the end of this presentation, and I'll stop here and take any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much. That was great. I liked that very last tip where, you get to this wonderful place where you just can, with one click, spin up any kind of test environment that you want, but very important to remember the cost aspect of that too. So anyway, lots of great practical tips for us all to think about. And, it's a great learning opportunity potentially for people who maybe don't have a lot of knowledge or experience with infrastructure. This could be a great way to build out your skills and knowledge. So with that, let's switch to a bit of Q&A. Graham, how do you want to go about this? Do you want to share the screen of Slido, or?
Yeah, I can share the question queue and we can work our way through it. And just as I'm sharing the screen, I'll note too, I opened the first poll just asking for a rating of how today's talk went. So if you go to Slido, you can share your rating there and also submit any questions to the Q&A. We have a couple, so we can get started with those. Let's go like this. Okay, so you should be able to see the Slido queue. So the top question right now is, would you suggest testers take on managing test environments if there is no infrastructure as code and/or pipelines to deploy the environment and code?
I would not really suggest testers, take on managing test environment, if there is no infrastructure code or pipeline. Basically, if testers do not have any knowledge, if testers do not have any prior training and experience dealing with test environment, you should not do that. Rather, like I said, start creating a small environment team, hire 1 or 2 person and start building that environment team so that, they take care of your environment needs, and also slowly they start training testers, and also testers would, get motivated and start, learning things that are needed, taking step-by-step approach. So once testers get comfortable, and once you have DevOps team building the code and the pipeline, you can start leveraging them, and you can branch out the existing DevOps code and customize and configure as per your requirements and take it from there.
Got it. Thank you. Second question in the queue is there a resource that you or members of your team have found useful in getting started to determine what test environment needs are? Is there a good place to start for someone who wants to start doing this?
Definitely, start with the cloud. I mean, cloud is extremely important. Not just cloud. I mean, it could be your own data center like OpenStack. So you definitely need to understand and get some training on the cloud. And also it's extremely important to understand technologies like Docker, Terraform, Ansible, Packer, right? Again, not to be expert at those, but you need to understand to a certain extent, where you feel confident, making changes to the code, or having to make any changes if you want to deploy the environment or whatnot. I mean, there are definitely a lot of resources, if you Google on the technologies I just said, but a good place to start would definitely be cloud.
Awesome, thank you. See, we got a couple bouncing around here. So do you have any suggestions for creating a device farm? Did your team use a particular application for virtual devices, or were they all physical?
For device form, there are a lot of options. You have AWS device form, you have Sauce Labs, you have browser stack, you have Kubiton. Kubiton is also a very good option. If you, I mean, I would recommend, building your own device form where, you could get a couple of Mac machines and, plug different mobile devices. And there are open source device form software that are available, which you can make use for managing and maintaining and controlling those devices. So definitely there are a lot of options for device, both on the cloud and on the prem. So it's up to you, what kind of requirements you have, what kind of budget you have. So based on that, you can choose what is going to work for you. On the virtual devices, again, browser stack and Sauce Lab provides a lot of emulators and simulators, which you can definitely make use of. But sometimes it becomes extremely important to test on the actual physical devices. So again, you'll have to divide the requirements between testing on the physical devices versus emulators and simulators. But definitely there are options available out there.
So doing a little bit of research to pick and choose what might make sense for your application.
Right.
Awesome. And then I think we have time just to round out the last question. So this question is, what is your biggest test environment challenge?
Biggest environment challenges, I mean, when we started that out, right? I mean, like I said, we were extremely dependent on external teams. And, when I put forward this idea of, creating, managing, and maintaining our own environments, people thought I was crazy. People gave this weird look. What is this person talking about, right? So I had to lead by example. I had to learn a lot. I had to get trained a lot. I did get trained. I mean, I did self-learn a lot, and I started with cloud. I went on to get my 5 certifications on AWS cloud, including the professional one. So there are definitely a lot of pushbacks. There are people who don't believe in you, but if you think you are heading in the right direction, if you are confident and have all the plan, just go forward with that. And the other biggest test environment challenges is, I mean, of course, we have solved a lot of test environment challenges, but still, there are testers who are hesitant to really, touch the infrastructure code, who really don't like it. Some of them are not comfortable. So you have to, push them, bring them out of their uncomfortable zone, make them understand. Sometimes it's okay, if some testers does not want to do that. I mean, that's absolutely okay. But it's all about bringing in the cultural mindset that is, needed. Apart from that, I don't think we have, biggest test environment challenge today. But if you had asked me the same question a decade back, I would have a long list of, answers for this. So I would say, we have solved majority of them, but the one I explained during my presentation, those were the biggest challenges that, of course, we also had when we really started our journey.
Awesome. Thank you. That's very, very helpful. And for everyone on the call, you can pop over to Slido anytime, and there'll be a poll open for the opportunity to provide feedback for Mahesh today. We'd love to give our speakers here feedback so they can take that and iterate and improve as they take this talk elsewhere. Back to you, Tina.
All right, thanks, Graham, for moderating Q&A today, and thanks again to Mahesh for the great and very informative presentation. Hope to see you all again next month. We'll meet again on the last Wednesday of February, so enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for coming out today.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
See you later.